Have you ever gone on YouTube and maybe it's somebody you follow and they tend to have a panel and they have discussions and it's engaging because there's a lot of opinions going on and everybody has their own opinion, and you just wish that you can call in to just shed some facts because it just seems like it's all opinion based. So it happens. And one of the conversations that I constantly hear over time is this is the idea that, and it's between two groups, for example, African American people and Caribbean people. So a lot of the time when these groups have a conversation, Americans might say, you guys know your culture more or know your roots more than we do, and vice versa. Caribbeans might say, you guys don't even have a culture. So it's always this disconnect on, who's right about the situation. What I will say is that is really no difference. Both groups are not aware of their roots. The root being Africa, right? That's the base. They're not familiar of, the origin. And so I think the reason why there's a disconnect is this. When the conversation is being had is between an American and maybe a first generation American like myself or a second. And here's the thing. So think about the root. Africa is the root. And then once we left, there was different stops in South America, Central, the Caribbean, here, right? So different stops were made from the root. And then you just had to form a new culture once you got there. So sure, you took from what you knew back home, but then you kind of have to enhance it a little if you want to survive where you are. So that's usually what happens. So even a Caribbean person that comes from whatever country, a lot of ideas you're bringing from back home, how to cook, certain celebrations, etc. But you kind of have to evolve it a little because now you're in a new place. So you become like a mix. And so it's just a funny idea. So how can you say that one group know their roots over the other? Is literally the same situation. The only thing is that a person who was in the Caribbean and then decided to move here is they're still in the same boat of not knowing their origin. It's just that now they have to become familiar with another way of living while they're keeping their customs of their country. So it just appears that, oh, these people are here, they know how to operate here, but they're still in tune with how things are operated in their country. So there's a false narrative, okay, these people are familiar with their roots. No, the root is Africa. Once again, you're not familiar with it. We've gotten new names and everything like that. We're missing the root. And then if you turn the conversation, some people might say African Americans don't have their own culture. And so here's why those things are said. It's said because in this country, blacks are not the majority of the population. And so usually the dominant society, some people use that terminology, the dominant society created, let's say, a culture here in America, and then the people under it just followed along. So that's pretty much that idea. So people think that because you're not of the dominant society, your culture had to come from somebody else. That's that thought process. And another thing is the population looks different. So the black people here don't look like the dominant majority of the population. So how can you have your own culture? That's what people are feeling. On the flip side, if you take a place like Jamaica, for example, the people running the country, it looks like the majority of the population. So that's where it becomes this conversation of, oh, you know your culture, you don't have a culture, etc. But To simplify for everyone, it's the same boat. It's two groups of people who left the root and got split up and had to become a new thing somewhere else. Not familiar with the roots because both people are carrying a different last name than what they had in Africa. As you see, the people that migrate from Africa now, they still have their African names. Those are the people who you can say kept their roots, kept their culture, kept their language in a sense. Those are the people who are untouched. But us who have different last names and form different cultures, everybody's in the same boat. So it's just that maybe where you live, it's just that in the States, whatever culture you created, there's a larger culture with more people. And then in the Caribbean, for example, the culture there or the people there, they look more like who's running it in control. So it just gives an appearance that that is different, but it's literally the same thing. It's just whoever's in power may look different. So hopefully that makes sense, but I hear it all the time and I always wanted to speak about it because it's a narrative that you hear left and right. So I'll catch you guys on the next one. Let me know what you think about it down below. Maybe I can make a point finer if you would like. But yeah, I'll catch you on the next one. Till next time, David the Ring, no frontier, over and out. Peace.